Surviving the Great Reset, or what's going on here. And, when I think about, as we all sit here together in these moments, especially in this location, I really wanted my family to come this time, but everyone was too busy. But there's something spectacular about being on a farm, talking about holistic living and food, and, with the backdrop of what's happening in the world, it's more important than ever. I'm going to be honest with you. I tend to be very optimistic. I think it's one of the reasons, when people come up to me, and one of the favorite things I hear is, I watch the High Wire because it really gives me hope. But this week was hard for me. This last week, I had my show Thursday, but the previous Friday, when I sat and interviewed Geert Vanden Bossche, and there's one thing to talk about, what we've talked about. I remember when I was here a couple of years ago, I said that I think there's going to be massive amounts of death. I think we're going to see real issues in our future, but it was somewhat theoretical. And as it gets closer and closer, I will tell you, on Friday, it really sunk in as I was listening to Geert. And it doesn't matter whether you fully believe what he's saying, or, Peter McCullough, or Robert Malone, or Stephanie Seneff. And, all of these people are pointing out the same error, really, which is the total loss of respect for nature and for God. We have completely done what almost every biblical text, no matter what religion you believe in, has warned us about. I even think about stories of Atlantis, which, mythological stories tried to warn us to never become so arrogant that we thought we were God, or that we thought we could outsmart nature. And there's nothing that represents that more. And I keep asking myself, is this really happening? Are we really in this time? Is this ever, how many generations thought they're on the verge of Armageddon, whether it was a nuclear war, and, my parents grew up with duck and cover, and all these fears that have always been in our society. And all of those things have been running through my mind all week as I tried to really take perspective of, first of all, some of the things that my show has been sharing over the last couple of weeks. Not truly as optimistic as I've been before, because some very heavy information is coming through, whether it's our food supply issues that we've been discussing, and the fact that we've got, distribution plants burning down and no one seems to care, which is very disturbing, when our own government is not worried about the fact that we've lost 20 to 30 massive food distribution plants. You have to start asking yourself, then, are they in on it? So all of these things had me really, I think, more concerned than I've been in a long time. And I tried to come to grips with that. And thinking about Sally talking about the water, and the energy of water and how we affect water was so powerful, because I actually got under the weather just about 3 or 4 days ago. I literally finally just got laid out. I think a lot because my mind and what I was thinking about in the darkness sort of affected the water in my body, and we have to be careful of that. But, so how do we sort of live in this moment? And how do we adjust ourselves so that we don't poison ourselves and become toxic as we try to manage the energy of what's taking place around us, I think, is really critical. I happened to go to church on Easter with my family, and interestingly enough, the minister on Easter said, I'm going to be the only minister probably in the country that will tell the story of Noah today. And it was really interesting how I won't get into how he tied it together with the Easter story, but I've often thought about Moses a lot, and this idea of the promised land, and trying to get to the promised land, and the people in bondage, and how many times Pharaoh, I think I might have said this the last time I was here, that what always amazed me about the story of Moses was that every time Moses would go before Pharaoh and say, let my people go, let them out of bondage, let us be free, to practice the belief system and have God in our lives, And, you know, he'd throw down his staff and it would become a serpent, or, and then, Pharaoh would freak out and say, all right, whatever your God is powerful, truly, go ahead, get out of here. And then every time my dad was a minister, I said, but Dad, why does it say here? It's like as soon as Moses leaves, it doesn't say that Pharaoh just changes his mind. It says God hardened Pharaoh's heart. That God was somehow a part of then putting them back into bondage. And then Moses would come around again. And, whether it was turning the river into blood or, angels of death, eventually, finally, the people are released from bondage. But why the repetition? And I was sitting here laughing as I was having this thought in the car, and it hit me as I was just praying before I came over here. And I looked up something online, and Jimmy, my manager, was asking, what are you looking up? I was like, I want to look up, I remember a quote, and it was Winston Churchill, what is the definition of success? The definition of success is moving from failure to failure and never losing inspiration. And in many ways, that's what we find ourselves in. We've been in this repetitive motion. And I think about Sally Fallon and Joel and Hilda, so many people that have been a voice for reason long before I even got onto this journey. How many years, the Weston A. Price Foundation has been warning of moments like this, the repetition of the story of the importance of our food. And, all the work Joel has done, and the farmers that slowly have been taking on these practices, and now it's becoming popular. How many times the repetition? How many times did we feel like maybe there was a moment it would give in and things would go, and then the government suppresses a farm or takes people's rights away? Or we just heard about Amos up on the Amish farm losing his ability to deliver food to the rest of the country. These moments feel like Satan. They feel like darkness against us. But what I think I have to keep reminding myself is there's nothing more powerful than God, and God is truly a part of all that is taking place. And so I want to share with you this journey for me, because there are setbacks. There are things that have taken place from the moment I decided to get involved with Vaxxed and make that film. And, very early on, when we were sitting and we were editing the movie, there would be things that would take place. Like one time we were editing, and all of a sudden, we're looking at all the videos and the audio, and they just started disappearing and being yanked out. We saw them moving, so somebody had gotten into our computer, and things were getting pulled right before our eyes. We're trying to turn off all the power and shut down the power. We knew we were being watched. We knew something was happening. And, Andy Wakefield, a brilliant man, but, he would really get upset. And I was like, okay, whatever, we'll recover whatever we have to. And then there was a moment where, the story of the whistleblower that was at the heart of the CDC really broke out. Someone had sort of gotten a hold of the transcripts that were the entire center of our movie. We're trying to get the story out. We wanted to make sure the story was told correctly so that people understood it. And it sort of leaked out. Someone had leaked the information out. And Andy was really upset that day. He said, I was told, that I would be in control of this information until we were able to deliver it the right way. And I remember I sat and prayed that morning, and I just thought, this could be really devastating. This could undermine the releases of our film, getting it out. People will already know the story before we get there. They'll have their versions, all of those things. And I thought about Moses, and I thought about that story, and I thought, everything is God. And I remember I went to Andy and Polly, the co-producers, and I sat them down. And I'll soften the language a little bit because there's children in the audience. But I said, Andy, Polly, we will never, ever have enough funding to buy all of the television sets in America, to make sure that the movie theaters are purchased to air this film. We will never have that money. We will never have all the ad agencies that pharma has to manipulate the population of the world to believe in the pharmaceutical industry. We will never have the newspapers on our side. We will, never be able to fund the amount of, prints of the film that would need to be made to get into every theater, even if we were allowed. On paper, in reality, with reason, there is no way we win this fight. And I said, so we're panicking right now because something doesn't make sense to us. I said, but here's the way I've got it figured. Either God is with us or we are effed. That's it. I don't care how smart you think you are, Andy, or how talented I think I am as a filmmaker. There is no way we outsmart this system. Something so magnificent, something so spectacular will have to happen here. Something biblical in order for us to get this message across and to win this. And so here's what I think. I said, this huge problem that we're looking at that seems devastating, I am going to go ahead and assume God is on our team. We need advertising we will never be able to afford. We need to open up minds. And so whatever it is that is taking place that seems like it's against us, I'm going to go ahead and assume it's the part of God's plan that I do not understand. Because if this goes only my way, we don't win. And so I honestly, from that moment on, for the last 6 years, I guess maybe even 7 years now, we're going on in this journey. Every single time there's been a major hiccup, and we went on to get kicked out of Tribeca Film Festival, of course, which was devastating for a filmmaker. I'd always dreamed to be at Tribeca, always dreamed to be at a Sundance Film Festival or Telluride or the Academy Awards. It's one of those things. And then to get kicked out, I remember, for about 5 minutes, I thought, that's the end of my career. This is all over. We are totally screwed. That's it. Game over. And then something snuck in, the same thing. And I thought, either God is with us or we are effed. All right. Let me think about this. So you always wanted to be at Tribeca Film Festival. You got into the festival with this film. And I thought, wow, I don't know of anyone who has ever been kicked out of Tribeca Film Festival. That's historic. I'm a media guy. I can make a story out of that. And sure enough, it became the biggest story in media for the month before we ever got the film out the door. I mean, it literally became an international story. And within 4 or 5 days, we got a call from Angelica Film Center in New York, where we were had already begun negotiations with them to maybe screen the film for a couple nights 6 months from now after we get through Tribeca. And I get a call from the head of the movie theater there, and he says, I want to offer you a screening of your film this Friday night. I said, wow, this Friday night? I mean, that's 6 days away. We weren't even supposed to be into Tribeca for a month to screen. We're still finishing up our film. And to be honest with all of you, when you screen at a festival, it's usually not your finished version. You're there with like the best version you could get together, and then all the filmmakers there give you thoughts and ideas, and you really doll the film up, use that energy and some of that editing to make a better film, and maybe 6 months, a year out, you finally release your film. So I was, in my mind, 6 months away from really, truly having a finished film, despite the fact that we didn't have credits and all the people that had helped make it happen. I said, so is there any way we could just push this back? Maybe at least give me 1 month so that I got it. The advertising will be the night you would have seen Vaxxed at Tribeca, you can see it at the Angelica Film Center in New York. And he said, nope. He said, "You are the biggest story in film and television in the world right now. I have no idea how long that press is going to last. I only know I will be able to sell tickets on that this week, Friday or leave it." And I just thought, all right, God, this is it. And you know, it seemed impossible. We didn't even have music in certain places, and I started calling all these musicians. I was terrified I was going to misspell someone's name. I had 20 people on the credits. But when I watched Vaxxed, when it finally screened, I'm a Hollywood filmmaker. That film is still really very raw. It's not as smooth as most documentaries you would want to watch. It hadn't gotten my sort of final creative touch to it. But I'll be honest with you, it sort of reminds me of when you hear about a painter that just can't end the painting, they can't step away from the canvas. This film would have had that problem, except I was only allowed to touch it for 4 or 5 more days. And when I watch that film now, every time I watch it, I get tears in my eyes. And this movie has moved doctors and nurses and people all around the world, and I've never fully understood why. But one of the things about that film is it is not polished. It is raw as any movie ever would be or should be. And the fact that I didn't get to button it all up, that rawness, I think, really makes it the truth. I think it really grabbed people because it just wasn't polished. It wasn't manipulated. You feel this mother as she's crying. You feel how jerky it is. It's not a smooth story. It's not a perfect story. It's a real story. And in that moment, I think God stepped in and yanked us away from the film so that we couldn't touch it. And kicked us out of Tribeca Film Festival so that we would get more free advertising than any film in the history of the world. And so as I come here today, my message to you, and we were having dinner last night with some great friends that I flew in with, and just talking about how blessed we truly are in this moment, that grace and love and that energy, how spectacular this life is, how special it is. And as dark as these times are, what we have to realize is this too is God. This too had to happen. And I've had to remind myself that this week because it really became clear to me that I think we are about to see some of the most horrific damage to humanity that will have ever been experienced, if not ever. Probably worse than any world war or anything else. The way this vaccine program looks to have stacked up, I think there is such severe harm that has been done. If Geert Vanden Bossche is right, a month or two from now, we will start to see this thing collapsing and the human beings that are going to go with it. And I realized that I was taking that on personally, which is something I make a point to try not to do. Because one of the things that really got me as I was working on Vaxxed, I tend to be a fairly calm, chill guy. I'm in high school and in school, I just roll with things and I get along just fine. And I remember when Vaxxed had just released, and we were being attacked by every major newspaper, and I was like, well, I knew it was going to happen. I was kind of expecting it. One day I got in my car at LAX. I'd just flown back in, and I was driving down the road, and I was suddenly terrified. I mean, I literally felt like a cold black fluid ran from the top of my head down to my feet. It was so bad, I had to pull off the highway. I couldn't focus, and I pulled off the highway. I was almost hyperventilating. I was like, what is happening to me? Why am I so afraid? And so I remember just sitting there thinking as cars are whizzing by on the 101 freeway, I thought, okay, Del, all you are is a filmmaker. I mean, that's all you are. All you did was take people telling their truth and put them in front of a camera like you always do. They spoke their truth. You took that and you edited it together and you put those people's stories together. Yes, it's effective. You're good at what you do, but that's all that you did. The rest of this, all of the sensation, all of the people attacking, all the people celebrating, all the people lining up to meet you, everything that's happening right now is not you. That's not you. You are just a simple human being that made a movie, and the rest of this is out of your control. And I remember, like, really, suddenly I felt better, pulled back on the highway, I started driving down the road again, and I was fine. 30 days later, so 1 month later, same exact thing. All of a sudden, one moment, black fluid, top of my head, bottom of my feet, freezing cold, totally terrified. Talked myself out of it again. Del, you're just a filmmaker. Like, it all worked. I went through the same pattern. But I asked myself, where is this starting? Where is this fuse of fear that is somehow, like, all of a sudden overcoming me? It can't be happening out of nowhere. There's something I'm doing that is setting this into place. And so, I don't know, maybe it was a few weeks later, and I had seen this politician, and someone wanted me to fly to this other state. I'd already been 3 states in 4 days, and I was trying to get there, and someone said, Del, you need to call that senator. You know, they're going to try and pass that bill. And that night, I was so angry at myself that I forgot to call that senator, that I should have called that senator. I mean, people are going to die if I made a mistake, and I was like, I could have done this. I could have done more. And I realized, oh my God. This is it. This is where it's starting. I happened to be reading my Bible at that moment, and I read Jesus' 40 days in the desert, where Satan keeps telling him, you have the power. You don't have to starve out here. Turn these stones into bread. You can bring down your angels. And I thought, this is what that is. It's starting in my empathy. It's starting in a place where I'm just trying to do good. But I've forgotten my rule, which is either God is with us and God is doing this, or we are effed. Suddenly, I'm the one doing it. I'm the one that has to make another phone call. I'm the one that if I don't do what I have to do, the world is going to come to an end. It's all me. I. And I realize why I'm so terrified is I am suddenly all alone, completely terrified because I'm all alone. I am all there is. And nothing could be further from the truth. That's why when I would give myself the little speech, all you are is a filmmaker, Del. All you're doing is the best you could do. The rest of this is out of your control. And I'll be honest with you, when people say, you're so brave, how do you do it, or the sacrifice you made? I'm telling you right now, I've never had cold black fluid run from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet since the day I realized I'm not doing this. I am simply here as a vessel for God. That's all any of us are, ever. The incredible, the spectacular. I think back to my parents. I was really lucky that I was raised very close to what we're talking about now. I never, ever went to a doctor as a child. My mom didn't believe in them. In fact, my mom would tell me, there is no such thing as disease. I don't even say this on my show because I don't think that the show is there to try and take people that far into a journey. Most people would not probably want to live as radically as I live or as I was raised. There were no doctors. It didn't matter if we had a fever through the roof. Didn't matter what was going on. My mom just said, this is natural, this is important, and you're going to be just fine. And it was pretty scary a couple times. I even came home once, I broke my leg, I think, playing soccer. I rolled over and someone gave me some crutches. I was like, oh my God, good. I came up to the front door in crutches. My mom opened the door. She's like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, I think I might have broke my ankle or something. She grabbed the crutches and threw them in the front yard. She said, get in the house and walk it off. I'm not telling you all to live like that. I'm just telling you how I was raised. And, Sally Fallon was talking about Edgar Cayce. That's actually how I was raised. My family raised me with all the Edgar Cayce teachings, which was sort of what brought me here. So I don't know how many of you know Edgar Cayce, but deep Christian beliefs connected with this idea that we are truly connected to each other. We're connected through the Akashic records. All of the understanding in the world is available to all of us if we can tune into that. And that was how I was raised. And as Sally was talking about, what was it, the spectacular, the incredible, and I forget what your exact title was. What was it? Extraordinary. The extraordinary and the ordinary. My parents, as I was growing up and being taught to meditate, I think from the time I was about 3 years old, and my parents would always say to me, especially my dad, he would say, Del, there is no one on this earth that is more special than another. We are all God's children, and we are all equal. We are all just human beings, vessels for the truth. But the way your mother and I are going to raise you, you will always know how spectacular it is to be human, how spectacular and powerful we are as beings. You're not better than anyone else, but odds are you will recognize how spectacular you are more than most. And I share that with you because all of you out here with children, I just want to stand for intentional parenting and how important that role is. You cannot let other people raise your kids. You cannot let them brainwash your children in school. There's no reason to be having kids on this planet if you are not going to let them realize how spectacular they are, how important they are, how unique each and every one of them is, and how capable they are of changing the world. So when people ask me, how did you get into this, Del? Where does the story start? I said, how far back do you want to go? Because it really starts with my parents. What happens when you raise kids to believe that they're capable of changing the world? That's what my parents did every day of my life. And I don't know whether or not it's because I was socialized that way by parents, but for some reason, from the time I was a young child, I thought, I'm on this earth for a reason, and there is something out there I am supposed to do. And it bothered me. It bothered me on a constant basis that I just kept feeling like I'm not doing it. I remember being back home in Boulder once, and I had won an Emmy Award for my work on the CBS Talks to the Doctors. And, one of my best friends, I was just confiding in him. I was like, I'm not, it's not it. It's not what I'm supposed to be doing. There's something I'm supposed to be doing. He's like, geez, Del, it's like you're not grateful. You're winning Emmy Awards. We're all watching you. What does your life need to do? I said, it's not that I'm not grateful. I'm grateful for everything that's happening, but I have a purpose here, and it's not working on the CBS Talk Show, The Doctors. And then many of you, I'm sure, have heard the stories as I've told it, but the moment I was sitting in the basement, all the miracles that brought me to the moment I saw Vaxxed for the first time, in that moment, I realized, oh my God, I was being trained for this the whole time. All that angst, all that wondering what it was. I knew it was out there. And in that moment, I said, wow, for this I was born. I knew it like I've never known anything in my life. And so for those of you that, will come up and say, thank you for your sacrifice, I want to be perfectly clear. I have not sacrificed anything. If anything, I want to represent to you that the moment I let go of fear, the moment I let go of being in control, which is what that decision was, the end of my television career didn't matter. It wasn't like, well, Dell, you're going to end your television career. I knew that was a part of it. But I knew I had come upon why I was here. And all I've ever thought in that is, there's no way that's wrong. There's no way that that can be the wrong choice. But there's one part of it that I didn't realize. When all the searching for what I was supposed to do or how I was going to, change the world, if that was what it was, the moment I decided to make Vaxxed, and I called, my wife, and I let her know, and she knew what I was doing down there, and we're very, connected. But I said, this is it, honey. This was that thing I always knew was out there, and I am pretty sure this is going to destroy my television career. I'm not sure where the money is going to come from, but I'm telling you now, I'm going to do this. It wasn't a question. I wasn't asking permission. There was nothing in that room or inside of me that there was a question. I said, I just, want you to know you're okay with it. And she said, well, of course we are. We support you. We'll find a way. We'll figure out how to fund everything, and we'll make it work. In that moment, my life as a producer, and what makes you a great producer in Hollywood, because you spend tons of money every time a camera's rolling, you've got to foresee all the potential problems that there's going to be, whether it's a light is going to bounce off the back of Dr. Phil's head wrong and be too shiny and make him look like an idiot. You better never let that happen, by the way. But all the things that could possibly go wrong, you have to have thought of it ahead of time. So I was really good at thinking the future, really good at planning for all the problems. I'm very, very good at that. But the moment I decided to make Vaxxed, which leads back to that point that either God is with us or we are effed, that truth takes away all of my long-term vision. It's been gone. The moment I made that decision, my life has never been the same. It has never moved smoother. It has never had more beauty or miracles involved in it. But I will tell you this, I have no idea where I'm going. I know that's shocking, because so many people come up and say, Del, it's amazing how ahead of the game you are, how you've predicted everything that's going to happen in the science and all of these things. And I get a lot of credit. I mean, that's where everyone's at. I mean, the high wire is visionary. I'm being deadly honest with you right now. We are simply, and I have simply been stepping into the abyss every day in complete faith. And somehow, every step into space, there is something there. And that step has taken us higher and higher and higher. To the point where, one of the things that is the most important, and I try to keep a check on, is that need to know where we're going. It's that same I. Everyone keeps asking me, Del, how does this end? Or where's this going? Or what's your plan? And truly, that's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We don't get to decide. That's the problem with Bill Gates. I'm serious. That's the problem with Tony Fauci or Francis Collins or any of these people in leadership positions. It's their fear of where the world is going. I'm telling you, Bill Gates is not trying to be an evil dictator of the world. He's trying to save a world that he is terrified is ending around him. He has lost all faith in God. He is nothing but an eye with a vision of how this all ends and where it goes. And if it doesn't go his way, we all die. That desire to know our end is what makes people evil. That's where we forget God. That's where we forget to remember that the eye is just a simple vessel. All we have is this moment. All we have is this day. All we have are our children. All we have is the love that we radiate through the water of our body right now in this moment. We live in an incredible time. Great change is most likely upon us. The crimes of our egos, the crimes of our need to control are going to work themselves out. As Geert van den Bosch said, nature will find its equilibrium. And so when I think back to the Easter moment, the story of Noah getting on a boat, the minister said, you know what's amazing about Noah? They never talk about. In the Bible, it took him 100 years to build that boat. We all think, oh, it was really bad weather and, he started building a boat. That's not the story. This man, like Sally Fallon, was building a boat before everyone knew there was a problem. Building that boat with an understanding and a faith that that boat was going to be needed. And he pointed out that even in the story, every time we see the movie, the rain starts coming down and Noah's shouting to the people that won't listen to him. He said, but that's not what the Bible says. The Bible says Noah gets on the boat, shuts the door, and weeks later, it begins to rain. Complete and total faith. Complete and total surrender to our mission, no matter how ridiculous it looks or who will listen. That is why you are all sitting here today. We're in a boat right now. We're on it. It's fantastic. And I try to imagine what that moment is for Noah when the rain really does start coming down. As you're looking over the side of the boat to all of those loved ones, all the neighbors, all the friends, all the families that we tried to enroll, that we tried to get on the boat. There's sadness there. There's pain. But we can't hold on to that. We can't contaminate our water. We cannot contaminate our animals. We cannot eat in anger or fear. We're here together, folks. God is building our community right now for us. It's happening. We are afloat. Don't forget how extraordinary you are. Don't forget that you're extraordinary because you are letting God's will move through you. And don't forget, no matter what we are about to experience here, there is only love, there is survival, there is rebirth. We are not going to survive a great reset. We are going to be reborn into the earth that we were promised. Grow your chickens, build your farms, stay in love, try to enroll everyone you can, and those that we don't, they were a part of this too. They were part of a journey we were never supposed to forget again. It's going to be biblical. It's going to be powerful. And we are going to excel beyond our wildest dreams. Stay in love. I love you. And know that we've got each other. We're a community. Thank you.